Hello and welcome to another video on accounting. We are continuing our discussions of internal controls. In this video, we will talk about control activities over cash. Just to recap what internal controls are, these are the policies and procedures designed and used by management to protect company assets, report reliable financial statements, and carry out efficient operations. In this video, we will talk about protecting assets. Every business has assets, and one of the important assets is cash. Now, because without cash or lack of it, it is difficult for business to grow and even exist. So it is an important asset that should be managed properly. Now, cash is also highly desirable by fraudster because inherently it has a few characteristics that make it a target of fraudsters. Number one, that can be easily concealed. Now, cash it is small enough to conceal it, and also it can be easily transported from one place to another. Cash lacks ownership, so whoever has it is practically the owner of cash. And finally, cash can be easily converted into any other types of assets. So you can purchase any other types of assets with cash. Now, these characteristics make it highly desirable for fraudster. And again, it can be manipulated. It is vulnerable to fraud. Therefore, uh, companies must protect their cash through controls. So what are the controls that should be put in place? In the last lecture, we talked about control activities. The first of them is establishment of responsibilities, segregation of duties, documentation controls, physical controls, independent checks, and finally human resources controls. These are the control activities that most organizations have over their activities and implement over their assets to protect them. We will look at each one and how they apply to cash. So the first one is establishment of responsibility. Now, establishment of responsibility refers to designating one specific individual to do a particular task. So in case of cash, those companies must designate only specific individuals, such as cashiers, that must be tasked with handling cash receipt and payments and bank deposits. Now, the reason for designating a specific individual is that in case there is cash shortage or cash is missing, it it is possible for the businesses to identify the person responsible for it. Now, the more the people that are involved in cash handling, it becomes more and more difficult for businesses to identify the person responsible in case cash is missing. So the important element is that a specific individual must be designated for cash handling. Similarly, for cash deposits or for cash payments as well. Now, the second control activity, and probably the most important control activity that deters fraud, is segregation of duties. Now, segregation of duties means that the related tasks must be divided among different individuals. So related task of cash would be cash receipts, cash recording, and cash payments, cash deposit in the banks. All these activities must be separated and done by different individuals. So duties of cash handling, receipts and payments, approving payments, recording cash, and depositing cash in the bank must be performed by different individuals. Now, so this is an important control and must be observed. The reasons for that is that it reduces errors. So since more people are involved doing their tasks, different tasks, and there are chances of one person reviewing the other person's work, and that reduces the errors, that reduces makes it possible to identify errors and correct them. And as I said earlier, segregation of duty is the best way to reduce the chances of fraud happening. Now, large businesses can implement segregation of duties by having different individuals perform different cash related tasks. Smaller businesses, however, might not be able to implement this control. So they need to have additional controls over the cash, so that in case they cannot have segregation of duties. But this is probably one of the most important controls when it comes to reducing fraud. The third one is documentation controls. This is a control activity which says that every movement of cash must be documented. Now, whenever cash moves in the organization, each movement of cash has to be recorded using certain documents. For example, cash receipts, cash payments, and deposits in the bank all have to be documented. So cash receipts is usually documented using cash receipt forms. When organization receives cash or checks, they use what is called remittance advice, or a list of checks that a form that records list of checks, or a form that records the cash receipts on daily basis. If it is a retailer, for example, a retailer operates a cash register, so all sales must go through cash register. The cash register will record cash, and at the end of the day will be able to print out a document, cash register tapes, which can be compared with the cash in the register to determine whether cash is missing or not. So cash receipts must be documented. Similarly, when payment has to be made, it has to be documented as well through checks. And whenever a check is made, it must have an approved document such as invoice with it. That is the supporting document for check. If payment has to be made for small expenses, so that will be done through petty cash. I have another video on petty cash, so do watch that as well. But for this video, if a small payment is made, it has to be documented using petty cash vouchers. Finally, when cash is deposited into the bank, there should be bank deposit slips. All those documentations are absolutely important, so that so that the business knows who did them, and at the same time, business identify the details of the transaction. The fourth control is physical in IT controls. These controls are implemented so the asset that is protected physically. So in this case, we will say we will protect cash physically if it is with us in the office. So the first thing is that whenever cash is in the business, it has to be kept in safes or in locked boxes. So those should be used to store cash. Similarly, checks should also be kept away in safe or locked boxes, so that we can secure them. And the second important control activity would be to restrict access to cash or check storage areas to only authorized individuals. This is an important control, so only designated individuals can access the vaults or safes or any place where the cash is stored. Um, The most important part of control activities over cash is that as soon as cash is received, it has to be banked. Ideally, cash should be deposited in the bank on daily basis, particularly if it is a large sum. And if it's not possible, then it has to be deposited on a weekly basis in case the cash is a small amount. Until the cash is deposited into the bank, it has to be kept in safe and restrict access to cash here. When it comes to payments, payments must be made through checks. Um, if in case cash payment is to be made, again, we need to document the cash payment. Generally, businesses should use checks to make payments and use electronic transfers as a system of protecting cash. And the same applies when cash is received. Businesses should encourage customers to pay businesses using the electronic transfers. This make ensures that the physical cash is not in the premises and does not involve exchange of the physical cash through and restrict the movements of cash in the business. So these are some physical and IT controls over cash that must be implemented. Independent checks is the fifth control activity. So when it comes to independent checks, basically means that the work of a particular individual should be reviewed by somebody else who is not involved in doing that task. If cashiers are handling the cash, their work must be checked by the supervisors or any senior accountant. This ensures that mistakes are not made, and when cash is missing, we can find out about it, and it also deters fraud. So supervisors should count cash receipts by cash handlers on daily basis. Whenever cash is received by and stored by the cash handlers, the supervisor at the end of the day must have a daily basis count the cash. Similarly, when cash is deposited into the bank by a designated individual, a senior accountant or a controller in the business in the accounting department must compare the deposits in the bank against the receipts, so to compare and identify inconsistencies early on. Again, when payments are made, so checks should be compared with invoices to confirm the right amount of payments are made, and the payments are approved, and they are made for a legitimate business expense. And finally, an important control activity over cash is to perform bank reconciliation at least once a month. This ensures that the receipts and the payments are compared. The receipts and the payments shown on the bank statement are compared to those that are on the accounting records. So any discrepancies can be investigated and acted upon as early as possible. I have another video on bank reconciliation and how to do that. So do watch that also, giving you an important control activity and how you should perform it. So the sixth control activity over cash relates to human resource controls. Now this refers to the controls over people that are handling cash. So the first thing would be to conduct background checks on employees handling cash before employees are hired, especially those that are handling cash or any employee. Thorough background checks must be done so that trustworthy employees are hired, and employees that are hired have no past histories of fraud or mishandling cash. So this is an important control that must be done by all organizations for all employees, but particularly significant for employees handling cash. So banks, for example, will rigorously conduct background checks um, um, when they hire people that are working in bank branches. Another important control is bonding employees who handle cash. Bonding employees means that the business is insuring and is taking out insurance policy against employee theft. So if an employee is involved in stealing company cash, the insurance will cover that cash. This is a particularly important control activity because insurance policies vigorously and thoroughly background check an individual before adding the person to an insurance policy. And it also deters employees from fraud because they know that insurance companies will go after them rigorously, and so that is a deterrent for fraud. So bonding employees is an important protection by taking out insurance against employee theft. Most businesses have found out that that cash was being stolen or a fraud was happening when an employee was sent off on vacation. So that's when another employee took over the role of the current employee and was able to discover fraud. Therefore, organization must have mandatory time off. They should send employees on mandatory vacation, and that's when individuals, companies can find if fraud was happening in a business. So these are the control activities over cash. The six of them, each one is an important control activity that must be present whenever cash is being handled in the business. And since cash is an important asset, it has to be protected. So I hope this video was helpful, and do like and subscribe the channel and hit the notification icon for more videos on such topics. I will see you in the next video.